Hi, it's Julia from Airfocus, and you're watching part 3 of Getting Started with Airfocus. In this video, you will learn about views, about all the different view types, how to create them, how to customize them, and how to use them. You will also learn about prioritization and road mapping, and how to implement this in your workflow. So let's get started. Let's go to our workspace. We are now in my VOOM Video Opportunities workspace. In here, you will have all your views available. In this part, all views, you can manage all of your views. You can create views. You can create public views and private views. What is the difference here? The views up here will be visible to all of your team. The private views will be visible only to yourself. So let's, for example, create a private view now. First of all, we can select the type of view. I'm going to explain all types of views to you in a second. Let's just start with a table view. We already said that we wanted it to be private. So now we can also add a description to let everybody on the team know what this view is about. We can also customize the view by setting up default filters and default display options. By using default filters, we can filter down from all the items available to us to only show very specific items. For example, only items that are assigned to myself. We can also add more filters. Then we can also set default display options. This defines how the items are being displayed. We can set swim lanes, which will group your items. For example, by objective. Here you will find a selection of the fields available in your workspace. We have talked about fields in the previous video, part 2 of Getting Started with Airfocus. We can also say if there should be empty swim lanes. And we can define which columns we want to display in this view. Now, once we have added the view, we will get something like this. In this example, I have named my table view the product backlog. The table view is usually being used as a product backlog. As you can see, this is a very nice and neat table with columns and rows. All of the rows are divided into these so-called swim lanes. I set up the swim lanes to show my objective field. So I have 3 objectives. 1, increase user engagement. 2, expand into enterprise market. 3, improve infrastructure. And in there, I have my items. Items can be opportunities, initiatives, tasks, whatever you want to call them, and whatever your workspace is about. Remember, you can set the item type in the workspace settings. Here we have our opportunities. So in this table view, we have the backlog of all of our opportunities. We can also show the parent items and toggle open the child items of those parent items. One useful thing in the display options is that you could also say the swim lane should show the parent item on top with the child items beneath. Keep in mind that these display options up here are only temporary. If you want to save display options, please set them up in your view settings in the default display options. In the default display options, we have the swim lane by objective, which is why when I refresh the page, it will jump back to the default settings of showing the swim lane by objective. Now, how do we get all of our items in here? We can very easily add an opportunity manually. Let's say we're going to work on a new app. When creating an item, we can set up the assignee or also multiple assignees. Then we can fill in all the information in regards of the fields that we have available in our workspace. So for example, the objective is increase user engagement. Status, contributor, labels, and so on. Please fill in all the necessary information that you need to be able to work with that item. We can also add a description, and we can link parent and children items also to this new app as far as you have configured your product hierarchy in the workspace settings, as we discussed in the previous video in part 2 about workspaces. Now, once we have created our new app, we will find it here in the group in the swim lane that we assigned it to. As you can see here, we also have a lot of items that have been imported from our integrations. You can add integrations from within the app sections on the top right here. Click on Add Integration. In here, you will find a lot of different tools available for you to integrate with, such as Jira, Trello, Asana, Azure DevOps, and so on. We also have specific feedback tools. If you want to know more about each of those integrations, please go to our Help Center, where you will find setup guides to each one of those. We are also happy to help you out if you just shoot us a message, let us know what it is you want to integrate to, and we're happy to help you set everything up. Let's go back to our workspace. Once we have all our items in our backlog, the next step would be to prioritize those items. And the prioritization happens here in the prioritization framework. Now, this depends on how this looks depends on the template that you have used to get started with your workspaces. But it usually consists of a Y value, including positive criteria, such as the reach or impact. With positive criteria, I mean criteria where a higher value is better than a lower value. On the contrary, we have the X factor, including negative criteria, such as team effort, for example. For the negative criteria, a lower value would be better than a higher value. And then we have this third factor in here, the R factor. This framework is completely customizable. Keep in mind, you can set up your own criteria from the fields that you have available. And I'm going to show you how you can do this now. For that, I want to go into the apps, into priority ratings. This is the app that defines our customization framework. In here, you will find again the value, the effort, and the revenue. If we toggle this up, we can find the criteria in here. And we can also add more criteria from the fields that we have available in our workspace. Keep in mind the text fields cannot be used as a criteria as they don't have a value assigned to them. We can also reorder the criteria by drag and dropping them around. And we can also always jump to the field settings where we can set minimums and maximums, and where we can show all the settings to define the units, the stepping, and so on. Then we can also change the weighting of the individual criteria or of the factors. For example, like this, it would mean that the ratings for the value have less importance than the ratings for the effort. You could even go one step further and use a custom formula. Please only do this if you have a very specific idea of what you want to achieve with that formula. We are very happy to help you out with that, with setting up your scoring formula, if you let us know what you want to achieve with that formula. Otherwise, we suggest that you use the weighting, because it is a very easy and efficient way of changing the weights and customizing your prioritization. Once you have set everything up, you can proceed and rate all your items. So let's rate our new app. Our new app has a pretty high reach of 90%. It has an impact of 8. The team effort required to create this new app is about 5. And the revenue impact, or the revenue, is L. Now, as we have rated all our criteria, we will see the score pop up on the left. This is the main metric for our prioritization, and the score usually goes from a 0 to 100, and the higher, the better. The score is calculated based on what you have set up in your priority ratings app. Now, once we have rated all our criteria, we can get a great bird's eye perspective on all of our priorities. And we can get that in the second view type, which is a view of type chart. For example, my priority chart here. Now, as you can see, this is a beautiful chart view with our value on the vertical axis and our effort on the horizontal axis. We also have 4 quadrants in here. By the way, the labels are completely customizable again. So the quick wins, for example, could be the low-hanging fruits as well. Those are the ones that you really want to focus on, because they provide you with the highest value with relatively little effort. On the contrary, we have the don't do's, or the items to cut, for example. Those require lots of value, but provide you with relatively little value. So those are the ones that you might want to rethink or throw out. Up here, we have the strategic ones that usually are the long-term projects that require lots of effort, but also provide you with high value. And down here, we have the low value items. You also might have noticed that the bubble sizes here are different. And the bubble size is determined by this third factor that I mentioned here before, the R factor. So the priority chart is great for visualizing 2 different things. On the one hand, the ratings from value versus effort. Those determine the position on the bubble, top, bottom, left, or right. And then the bubble size, as I said, is determined by the R factor. This chart view, together with the score, should give you a pretty good idea of what is important to focus on and how to create a roadmap. So let's talk about view types that allow you to create roadmaps. First of all, I want to show you our board view, or a view of type board. In this case, it is my Kanban workflow here. As the name says, a board view provides you with a board that has columns that match my company's workflow. So, for example, I have new, reviewed, discovery, design, in development, Q&A, and so on. But this could also be, for example, new, now, next, later. It really depends on your own workflow. You can completely customize this. It's very easy to plan with your items. Just toggle on the unplanned items view here to the left. Let's search for our new app. We can just drag and drop it in here. I actually first want to check where I have to put my item. Our new app seems to be a quick win. So I want to work on this as soon as possible. So I push this to discovery. Here you go. Let's push this to discovery. We can also just drag and drop your items in here to update the status of each of the items. Very conveniently, we can also just add an opportunity from within all of the boards that we have available. Yeah, so this is the board view. As I said, you can also completely customize this. This is just an example. You could even have several board view with different columns just by adding more views of type board here. So for example, we could also have another board view that shows in the columns the objective, for example, and only shows items with status in reviewed, for example. So we can add several different board views and we can add several different chart views. We can also add several different table views with different setups. You will find all your views always in here. Then the next view for road mapping would be a view of type timeline. An example for that is my release plan here. Again, it's very easy to plan with the unplanned item toggle here. You just toggle it up and again, drag and drop your items in here. You can also extend and shorten the timing. And you can also create something called dependencies just by connecting two items like this. Now, what you have here is a dependency. We have set it up by connecting the blue dots, but we could also do this manually in the item, scrolling down to the dependencies. This is where we can add a new dependency and we can search for items and connect them. We can also define if this is something that blocks the campaign new app for the new app, or if this is being blocked by the campaign for the new app. What happens now if I push the campaign for the new app back? You will see that the error turns into this dotted arrow. This is the system telling you, hey, you have to get active here. This doesn't really work out because the new app blocks out the campaign for the new app. So first of all, you have to finish the new app before you can start the campaign. Now this way it works out again. You can create as many dependencies between as many items as you wish. You can also change the display in the display options. For example, the zoom, if you plan very long term, you can switch to a quarterly zoom. Or if you plan very short term, you can even switch to a weekly zoom or a daily zoom, for example. For my use case, the monthly zoom works best. We can also change the arrangement, we can fill in colors and so on. There's stuff for you to play around with to get the perfect visual representation in the timeline. We can also add more fields to the item card details. Then, of course, we can also filter down to find specific items. We can do this, by the way, also in any other view that we have available. We can also create something called milestones, which is what you see here. So let's create a new milestone. Add milestone, sprint 100. We can also use this to visualize objectives, etc., etc. We can also just easily drag and drop this around and change the date this way. So this is our timeline view. Let's take a look at what else we have available. We have another view type that is called a view of type list. It's a list, as the name already says, that shows you all of your items in one convenient list. The great thing about this is that you can in a very compact way show all your hierarchy relations that you have within your workspace. So you have your parents on top and your children beneath. And this goes down to as many levels as you have available and linked as children and parents in your workspace. This is also great if you need to export your data in a CSV file, for example. Talking about exporting data and sharing data, you can, of course, share all of your views with internal and external stakeholders. You can do this by using our sharing options. So let's go to our Kanban workflow. We want to share this Kanban workflow. So let's click on sharing here. We can do this either by exporting a PDF view. This would be static, so it wouldn't be real-time updated. On the contrary, the share link, for example, would be dynamic, meaning it would be real-time updated. So this is actually super recommendable because you send it out once and everybody will be aligned all the time and updated. Let's take a look how this works. We are going to create a link and name it Kanban workflow. We can also set up a password to make it more secure. This is optional. Let's create the link. We could now use the iframe to implement this view also on our website, for example. But we can also just send out the URL to our stakeholders. What they get now is a read-only and real-time updated version of the view that we have created. They can access and see the details, they can see the priority ratings and so on, but they cannot change anything. So it's read-only, as I mentioned. And the best thing is that it's real-time updated. So if I change something in here, let's move our new app over here and refresh the share link, it will also automatically update what we have changed. You send it out once and everybody is aligned. We can, of course, create share links from all the different views that we have available. We can change the order of our views just by drag and dropping them around. We can also pin our views just by clicking pin for me or pin for everyone. The difference is that when I pin for myself, it will only be pinned for myself and show in my views pinned to the top bar here. If I pin for everyone, everyone in the team will have this view visible on their top menu bar here where the views are visible. Non-pinned views will be always accessible in the all views here. This little icon here shows you if a view is pinned for everyone. And in this case, the product backlog, the priority chart, Kanban workflow, and release plan are pinned for everyone on the team and visible for everyone in the team. As I mentioned, we can add more views of each of the types that we have available. As you can see here, I have a view that I haven't yet mentioned. This is the inbox view, and I'm going to talk about this in another video, in the video where I'm talking about feedback management. So keep tuned if you're interested in hearing about the inbox view and feedback management. So now we have learned about several different view types. Let's recap. We have the table view, mostly used for our backlog. We have the chart view used to beautifully visualize the priorities of your items. Then we have two road mapping views, one of which is a board view and the other one is a timeline view. Now, this is the video about views and prioritizing and road mapping. In the next video, you will learn about a different way of prioritizing together with your team. So keep tuned and thank you for listening in. Bye.